Namo Buddhaya, this is Abhinav. I welcome you to this live session. This is the fifth session we are doing uh, on the Buddha teachings. And let us start. So, if you have not yet joined the Telegram channel, you can join the Telegram channel Buddha Teachings 2, right? That Telegram channel you can join to get the updates. Sorry, just a second. Okay. Okay, so we will start. If you want to join through Zoom, if you are watching it on YouTube and want to join through Zoom, then this is the meeting ID and password that you can use. And if you feel that these teachings help you in some way, please help me, support me so that I and we can spread the teachings of the Buddha to as many people as possible, right? So the links are there given in the description. Okay, so let us start. So today what we will be discussing, see till last session we have discussed about we are continuing our discussion with the Noble Eightfold Path, and in the Noble Eightfold Path we are continuing our discussion on mental development, right? So in the last session we have discussed, now we continue, and this time we are picking right mindfulness and right concentration. So in this session I'll be covering right mindfulness and right concentration. It is very actually, mindfulness is said to be the heart of the Buddha's teaching, right? Entire teaching, and even within the teaching, the entire teaching, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path are the core of the teachings. And even there, the mindfulness, right mindfulness, is considered the heart of the teaching. Because if you pick this one up, then you can ensure that you can take care of the entire Buddha's teaching, right? So this is very important session. Okay, so Buddha said that the truth, in order to be liberating, needs to be known directly, not as a faith, not to be read in books or believing in some authority. So this is very profound statement, and that is what brings a lot of people into Buddha's knowledge, is because there is no some blind faith, or there is no some faith involved. You are asked to check with respect to your direct experience as to whatever the teaching is, right? Okay. Now, what brings insight is a mental faculty, right? What brings insight, what brings wisdom to us is a mental faculty. So we have many mental formations, many mental faculties, and one of the mental faculties is to be aware of things, right? So there is like one mental formation is getting angry, or one mental formation is getting sad. Another mental formation is being aware of the sadness, of the anger, of anything, right? So what we are using is that we use this faculty of mindfulness, that sati, this faculty. Now this faculty we only as humans we have, this animals don't have, right? So that is where we can use this faculty to liberate ourselves, right? Now, what are the characteristics of mindfulness? It is not a day-to-day awareness. It is a higher, something at a higher pitch. See, day-to-day, whatever our awareness level is, when we are rushing into things, our awareness level is very low, right? We are mostly in our mind. Even when we are doing things, we are, we are mostly in thinking about something else. But here, what we are basically being asked to do is that when we are doing something, we do it with full attention. Our level of awareness, which is, if we think it as it is here, our level of awareness should be here, right? Every task we do, it should be with full attention and full awareness, compassionate awareness, not some very harsh kind of an awareness, but compassionate awareness. Like when we are walking, like Buddha's thing is that always, what Buddha's story I share, that someone said that, what do you do? Buddha said that we walk, we eat, we sit. So he said that we also do. So he asked, what you do which is different? So Buddha said, when we walk, we know we are walking. When we sit, we know we are sitting. When we eat, we know we are eating. So this is the kind of awareness, this is the kind of awareness we need to bring into our daily actions, right? So it's much more refined and conscious awareness. Now involves keeping the mind at a heightened attention to whatever is happening. So in this moment, whatever is arising, I try to keep myself aware of whatever is arising, right? It's like Shri M. Shri M. I listened to one of his some short or something, Instagram short or YouTube short on mindfulness. He said, "What is mindfulness? It's basically you are in a dark room, and you're told that there is a cobra that is there in that room. It's a dark room, completely dark room. So when you are in that room, you are fully aware. You don't want to step on that cobra, or you are very aware of your steps. You're very aware of the sounds, right? So this is what the mindfulness, we need to bring it in our daily life, right? This is through this Noble Eightfold Path. Now what mindfulness does is it clears the cognitive field and allows us to see things as they are, right? See, what we see is not the how the thing is. We see about I don't see a person, I see an idea that I have about that person. When I hear something, I don't hear that person. Hear what I want to listen. Why? So this is like the sun is shining and there comes a cloud in between. So the sun's light doesn't come to me, right? Or if you think that there is a muddy pond, right? So that mud is my own perceptions, my own judgments, my own beliefs which come in the way, right? So now our task is basically clear seeing, which is again we will cover it in right view, right? Uh, so that's why right view, which is one of the Noble Eightfold Paths. So all these paths are interconnected. So what we are trying to do is that we just see things as they are. We drop our judgments and we even witness our judgments and interpretations that are happening, right? So it's like again a sea surfer analogy, that the one is that there are waves that are rising in the sea. It's a rough sea, and one is to get drowned in those waves. Another is what a sea surfer does. It uses these waves to surf, right? So what basically we have to do is that we have to learn how to become a sea surfer, right? How to just keep witnessing whatever is arising and falling, right, in our consciousness in every moment, right? If we have that ability to do that, what will happen is that we will not drown. Otherwise, what happens? We get drowned in our sorrow, we get drowned in our anger, we get drowned in our regret, right? Because the energy of mindfulness is not very strong in us. So when those kind of emotions come, then we just get lost in that, right? So this is what we need to do. Replace doing by noting, right? What we need to do is that what we do, we keep our unconscious, these are all unconscious tendencies in us. We try to do things. Now we need to note whatever is rising and falling. Observation, not doing too much of doing. We actually get lost in doing. Now what we need to do is that we need to observe how things are arising and falling in our mind, right? So what mindfulness does is it grounds us in this present moment, right? It's like a pumpkin versus a stone. That means if there is a pond, you put a pumpkin in the pond and it will float on the surface. Whereas if you put a heavy stone in the pond, or maybe a small stone also, it will straight away sink to the surface, to the bottom of the pond. This way, what basically mindfulness helps us to do is that it's a grounding tool, right? There is a lot of grounding tools that are there. uh, we sometimes get so messed up in the daily activities and the thoughts and the lot of thoughts and emotions that are running in us, and because of the events that happen in our life, we need to come back and ground ourselves in this very moment, and that is where mindfulness practice helps us to ground us in this moment. By the way, I have a detailed course in English on mindfulness. If anyone is interested, you can purchase. It will help support our channel, and it's a detailed course on mindfulness. Okay. Now, it leads to concentration, which leads to insight. Now, what mindfulness does is that our mind, which is scattered, will come to right concentration also, which is another Noble Eightfold Path. We'll discuss it in today's session. What mindfulness does is the scattered mind that we have, it concentrates it, makes it one pointed, and through that one pointed mind, it is like, seeing there is this glass, the magnifying glass, the sun's rays coming on the magnifying glass, and you put it on a cloth, and the cloth will burn, right? So that penetrating wisdom, that penetrating mind, our mind becomes a penetrating mind. And with that penetrating mind, when we see something, then we get insight. For example, if my mindfulness practice is so strong, then when I look at a food, instantly I will get that insight about the efforts of so many people that have gone into preparation of that food. And instantly another mental formation will arise in me, which is gratitude towards those people. In another way, if I see a meat in front of me, or if I see like some eggs or some poultry products or dairy products in front of me, if my mindfulness is strong, it will generate, my insight will come as to the suffering that has happened to the animal from which these products have come. So over time, maybe not immediately, but over time, it will help me to get rid of consuming those products, because then I'm not consuming the product, I'm consuming the suffering of that animal. And that suffering, somewhere I become part of that suffering, and that suffering becomes, because what we eat, we become that, right? So that essential thing is to cultivate our mindfulness, or train our. So this mental development, the section on mental development, is totally, the aim is that we basically train our mind, that our mind is very, very concentrated and one pointed, because that leads to insight, that insight leads to wisdom, and that wisdom will free us from the cycle of birth and death. This is like what the Buddha said, this is the path, right? There is no use of having a concentrated mind without insight, right? What it will do is that only that it will be focused, but then there is no use beyond that. We have to, the practices what Buddha has suggested, ultimately they should lead to insight, which is in Hindi it's called vipassana, right? And that insight will free us. It acts as a guard. It prevents the mind from losing in sensory pleasures, right? Past or future, right? Now, in the discourse, now see, right mindfulness, if you want to talk about mindfulness, then we come to Buddha's one of the most precious sutras, which is the Satipatthana Sutra, which is the discourse on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, in that sutra, Buddha offers the 4 objects that we need to practice the mindfulness, which is body, feelings, mind, and objects of the mind or phenomena, right? So there's a link to a YouTube video also I have given. Now, basically, Satipatthana Sutra is actually in itself, it's a topic which is covered in books. There are entire books written on Satipatthana Sutra. There are entire commentaries done by very enlightened Buddhist monks, right? So a detailed discussion on that sutra is not a part of this. I am also learning. I'm also in my growth journey. So I will only share what the little I get from that sutra. It's a very deep sutra, and intention here is that we start applying these things in our life, rather than keeping it as a kind of a theory thing, right? There's also said about Satipatthana Sutra, it's so important that a Buddhist who dies, at the time of his death, the others chant the Satipatthana Sutra to him, right? Is that important, right? Okay. So we come to so in Satipatthana Sutra, there are basically 4 foundations of mindfulness. So in that sutra, I've read the sutra in detail, where basically says Buddha asks us to practice mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind, the state of mind, and the mindfulness of phenomena. These are the 4 things that Buddha has asked us to practice. So we will take it one by one, right? Okay, so first is the mindfulness of body. Now, how mindfulness of body we can practice is, we start with the breathing. again, in breathing, again, there is a very detailed guidance that Buddha has given on the Anapanasati Sutra, which is the sutra on the full awareness of breathing. And now, important thing to note is that even if you give your complete attention to the breathing or the in and out breathing, that is enough for full liberation. That is itself is enough for full liberation. And it's a very, very simple way. So what we do is that when we breathe in and out, we just become aware of the in and out breathing. I'll discuss more detail, the Anapanasati Sutra's instructions in detail later on in this session. Then mindfulness is the posture. So when we walk, we should know we are walking. When we sit, we know we are sitting. When we lie down, we should know that we are lying down. When we stand, we should know that standing. You can maybe do this as a mentally this thing. When you are sitting, you can just have an internal this thing, sitting, right? Walking. If this helps you, right? Just be aware of each posture, and each posture that you change. When your practice deepens, what will happen is that, there is this small gap between intending to do something and doing something. That means if you are intending to drink tea, there's a cup in front of you and you want to drink tea from that cup. There is first an intention that happens, and then your body moves. So we have our mindfulness has to be so strong that we can even witness the intention of the drinking of the tea and to the whole process, right? This is how our mindfulness should be. Now think practically. Not everything you can do in your daily life. We are not monks and we are not nuns, but whatever, to that extent that we can bring more awareness in our life, that we can do, right? And which brings me to the point that Buddha's teaching is like not that you sit on a mat and that is your practice. No, Buddha's teaching is in every moment of our life, we have to practice this mindfulness, right? So mindfulness actions performed by the body, like dressing, eating, urinating, defecating, right? Falling asleep, having a bath. Every time you have to, only option where you are allowed not to be mindful is when you are sound asleep, right? That is where you are allowed to be not mindful, right? Otherwise, try to be mindful as much as possible of all the actions. Then when you talk about mindfulness of body, then there is a meditation. You can meditate on the body's unattractiveness. And this is very useful for those people who have a lot of sensual desires. And it's very difficult for them to get out of those desires. For them, watching the sensual desires arising and falling, dissecting the body to the various parts, like for example, if I see someone, I break down that person into a lot of things: body, blood, urine, excreta, lot of things. And then I realize that there are certain parts that I don't even want to know about, right? And the person is composed of all the parts. So the person as such, it's an appearance that's like a very attractive thing. But when you actually dissect and look into the parts, then you realize how unattractive the person is. So basic intention here is that Buddha is training us to let go of our these cravings, about the sensual cravings, about the cravings of the body, right? Because ultimately these cravings come back to the noble truth number 2, that these cravings are actually causing the suffering. These craving, this root, the cause, the noble truth number 2, the cause of the suffering is craving or the desire. This desire, we need to let go of the desire. That desire has caused us to bind us through karmas, and which we are take birth, every birth we take, and we try to do away with those karmas, right? Then symmetry meditations, like some traditions, they do symmetry. They do go in the symmetries and they see a body which is decomposing, and they see a body which is burning, and then they reflect on that this is how my body also will be one day, right? So these are all coming into the mindfulness of the body. Then we come to mindfulness of feelings. Basically how feelings arises, where our consciousness that is there comes in contact with the object. right? Through the sense faculties. So, for example, if I see a very attractive woman, then the feeling of sensual desire may come. So it's my consciousness comes in contact with that person through my sense objects. So that's why it's very important that we guard all our sense objects, because it is through these sense objects that my consciousness comes in. So that's why it's very, very important to to think, to be mindful of our consumption. If I'm consuming like movies which have a lot of violence, then ultimately I become violent, right? So this we need to be careful. Now, three kinds of feelings are there: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neutral feelings. Now, if the important thing, very important, if the feeling is not registered and noted, so the feeling when it arises, if we do not register or note that feeling, what happens is it triggers the corresponding latent defilements into activity. So we all have seeds of sexual desire, we have seeds of ill will, we have seeds of hatred, we have seeds of sloth, drowsiness, and many other seeds. If the feeling that has arisen, we do not register it, we do not note it as when it arises, then the seeds that are there in our unconscious, they get watered. And that is where the problem begins. Because once the train starts, then you cannot stop the train. You can only ensure that the train doesn't start, right? For example, if you start watching a web series on Netflix, and either don't watch the first episode itself, otherwise the first episode, second episode, third, then the binge watching thing will happen. Or example, take the example of an alcohol. You drink, like, if you want to stay away from alcohol, you don't drink even the first sip, because the first sip will become the first glass, and then the second glass, and then the third glass, right? So we have to nip it in the bud, right? Okay. So feeling what the latent defilements it generates is a pleasant feeling. That it's even a pleasant feeling can generate a latent defilement of greed and desire. A painful feeling can generate a repulsion, aversion. Neutral feeling can generate a dullness and delusion. So what we are going to do is that every time the feelings during the day, one is that we are mindful of the body, our breathing. Then even the feelings we will be mindful of. That right now pleasant feeling is arising. Right now unpleasant feeling is arising. Right now neutral feeling is arising. So we need to be mindful of whatever is going the feelings. Now, when we turn by turning into an object of observation, when we turn the feeling into an observation, the charge that feeling has to water the seeds of the defilements in our consciousness, that gets diffused, right? Continuing with mindfulness of feelings. So now what we have to do is that we attend to the arisen feelings fully, noting the distinctive qualities: pleasant, painful, neutral. Or you can also say, if you can identify it as greed, you can identify it as greed. If you can identify it as a sexual desire, you can also identify as that, whichever, but identify the feeling that is arising. We do not identify it. You don't say, I am always like that, there's some problem with me. No, you don't go into that loop. Just witnessing how it is. We don't associate that feeling with me, right? Just we witness that this is arising right now. And then how our practice, as it ripens, it deepens, then we can actually observe the fact that these feelings, and they arise and die by themselves. And then nothing is permanent. And then we get the insight of impermanent nature of the things in this entire creation, right? Which is what Buddha said as one of the 3 marks of existence: impermanence. Everything is impermanent. So now what we are discussing about impermanence is basically at a conceptual level. Our task through practice of mindfulness and the Noble Eightfold Path is that we observe this world as impermanent. When we actually, by direct experience, like what we talk about in the start of the session, when we by direct experience observe that everything in this existence is impermanent, then that insight will dawn in us that why I'm getting attached to things. When that attachment to an impermanent thing, when the thing goes, then it will give me sorrow. Then what's the point in attaching? So that insight, that wisdom will only come through this practice. And in Satipatthana Sutra, Buddha has given it so much importance. I would want to recite the exact line. He said that if you want to get free from suffering, this is the only way, right? It's not that Buddha is saying that all other paths by all other spiritual teachers are wrong, but it is just saying, he is just trying to say that how important this task is of practicing the four foundations of mindfulness, right? Okay, now we come to the state of the mind. Now we do not have a permanent state of mind. Our state of mind keeps on changing, right? It's a sequence of momentary mental acts. So there are 16 kinds of chitta, that is like mentioned: a mind with lust, a mind without lust, the mind with aversion, a mind without aversion, a mind with delusion, the mind without. So there are a lot of various types of chitta, or the state of the mind that is there. So now we observe. So one is that the feelings arise. See, one is that you see a beautiful woman and the feelings of sexual desire may arise, or you listen to a gossip and the feelings of ill will arise. That is one thing that you need to be mindful. Again, there are sometimes when our mind becomes, either we are like in a happy mind, or we are in a sad mind, or we are in an agitated mind. So what we need to also be mindful is the mind, the state of the mind, right? So one is the body, the second is the feelings, the third is the mindfulness of the state of the mind right now, that you can, whether your mind is happy right now, whether your mind is sad right now. So we need to be aware. Then comes mindfulness of phenomena or the objects of the mind. Now this is a bit complex, so I will simplify it as much as possible. So this contemplation of the phenomena is again divided into 5 sections: 5 hindrances, 5 aggregates, 6 inner outer bases, 7 factors of enlightenment, and the 4 noble truths, right? So now what we need to do for the understanding purpose, we only concentrate on 5 hindrances and the 7 factors of enlightenment. So 5 hindrances are what? These hindrances are the hindrances to our liberation. So these things come and they hinder our ability to meditate deeply. So it's sensual. So when we sit for meditation or we do any spiritual work, sensual desire will come, ill will can come, dullness or drowsiness can come, restlessness can come, and doubt can come, right? So we basically just become aware that this has arisen in me, right? That is what we need to aware. Then 7 factors of enlightenment are mindfulness, investigation, energy, rapture, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. So what is happening is, 5 hindrances are the 5 negative qualities that happen when we start on the meditation path, right? And 7 factors of enlightenment are the 7 positive things that start happening when we start on the meditation path. So we are become aware of all the things. Like when investigative tendencies are arising, we are saying, okay, this tendency is rising. And then if equanimity is arising, we are just aware of that. If ill will is arising, we become aware of that, right? So this is how. So body, feelings, mind, state of mind, and phenomena, all these things we need to be mindful, right? Okay, so there is just some more teaching by Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh says that mindfulness is the heart of the Buddha's teachings. Where mindfulness is present, the 4 noble truths and the Eightfold Path is also present. Then Thai says that when the difficult feelings are stronger than our mindfulness, we suffer. So as a corollary, when the mindfulness is stronger than our difficult feelings, then we don't suffer. This is very deep. So if there is a difficult situation or that we have in our life, what we have to do is that we have to, that actually is like a challenge to us to make our energy of mindfulness more stronger, so that we can deal with that situation, right? Now he says in a book that he has written, Miracles of Mindfulness. It's a beautiful book. You can read that book. He says 7 miracles of mindfulness. That means be present. First, you be present. Make the other present. So when you are present, if you look at a flower and you are present, you are also making that flower present, right? The flower also is present. The flower also blooms, right? Because it is, you are giving it your full attention. Then nourish the object of attention. That means when you're talking to a loved one, just nourish them with the object. Nourish them. When you look at a flower, you are nourishing that flower. Relieve the other's suffering. For example, if someone is about to die, you sit them with alert presence, and this helps relieving. Or if someone is sad and you are fully present and you talk to them, you let them empty their heart out and listen to them mindfully, then basically you are helping relieving the other person of their suffering, right? Thai says that we are all bodhisattvas. We all have the seed of bodhisattvas. We all have the seed to relieve the suffering of so many people in this world, right? So we have to be like bodhisattvas, be present. When we are present, people around you become happy. People around us become happy, right? Then looking deeply into the nature of things, looking deeply into my own suffering, right? I don't run away from my own suffering. I practice mindfulness of suffering. I sit with my suffering. Then understanding, I get insight, and then transformation. Through the practice of mindfulness, I transform my suffering. I let go of my old habits through the energy that I generate from the practice. So it's a very, very good book. You can buy this book, Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh. I have actually done a chapter-wise analysis on the books. It is available as for part of a course, which has a nominal charge, which helps support our channel. So if you want to buy that, you can also buy that. Okay, so that was right mindfulness. Now we come to right concentration, right? So again, mindfulness and concentration are mostly linked only, but there are a few other points. Now, again, untrained mind, our mind which is not trained in concentration, it, like Buddha compares it to like a flapping of the fish which is taken out from the water and thrown onto. So look at a fish which is taken out from the water and thrown onto a dry land. It is just, it will flap itself, so that way our mind becomes, it cannot stay fixed. It goes from idea to idea, thought to thought without any inner control. Concentrated mind is like a lake which is unruffled by any breeze. Now, when the lake or the water is so pure and the mud has totally settled down, then that lake can basically reflect whatever is placed before it, right? It mirrors, it becomes a mirror. So we have to be like, our mind has to be so concentrated and one pointed that it actually reflects whatever it's coming into contact, right? We are seeing things as they are, right? Which is actually the core practice of the Zen tradition. Their only practice is to see things as they are, right? Okay. Right concentration involves training ourselves to achieve a one-pointed state of mind so that we can generate insight which can free from suffering. Now, how to develop, right? That's the question. Through a regular meditation practice. So one is the mindfulness which we practice during the day, being mindful. Here in right concentration, we have to also have a regular meditation practice. Now, it can be two ways. One is a serenity practice, which is Samtha Bhavana, which is directed towards attainment. So we only develop the attainment of deep concentration, right? We only focus on that. Second is insight practice, which is the insight meditation, Vipassana Bhavana, which is basically we achieve concentration as an incidental, which is incidental to the path that we have chosen to generate insight. For example, if the Vipassana tradition by S.N. Goenka ji, there they follow the same thing, that first they concentrate themselves through anapan meditation, through the mindfulness of breathing, breath as an object, and then they move to the Vipassana, right? So there are multiple paths that are there. Now, requirements of meditation. So what are the requirements? Moral discipline. That means you take care of certain essential moral do's and don'ts, right? Then having a teacher, right? Then having a comfortable posture. Then the instructions of the teacher, right? Now, what are the types of meditation? There are many meditations. Now, what are the prominently practiced ones I'm sharing? The first one is Anapansati. Anapansati is the most easiest and it is one of the most recognized forms. Even said that Buddha himself practiced in the night of his enlightenment, he practiced Anapansati. So Anapansati is basically you make breathing, your natural breathing, as an object of your meditation, and you just watch the natural breathing, right? The way its breathing is happening, you are just watching the in and out of the breathing, right? So in the next slide, we will discuss the Anapanasati, basic, how to do Anapanasati. Second is Vipassana. Vipassana is insight meditation. Now, again, understand, uh, there are many traditions. So, in India, the very famous tradition is of S.N. Goenka ji. So, the Vipassana that they practice, which involves like moving from top of the head to uh, down to the feet and again to the top, witnessing the sensations, right? So, that is their way. There are many different ways to do insight meditation. So, but that is the intention here, is to get the insight, right? And concentration is something which is kind of a instrument to go deeper into insight, to get the insight, right? Then metta meditation you can do, which is the loving kindness meditation, where uh, you wish for compassion and you wish for all beings to get rid of suffering. Then counting the breath meditation you can do, which is like you count your breathing till 10, and then you start back, come back to 1, and then you continue like that. So these all meditations you'll find on various on YouTube, and or you'll find it on the Insight Timer. There's an app called Insight Timer. You can go on that app and there'll be a lot of meditations on these topics which you can do. Then task based meditation, like mindful walking, mindful eating. You take an apple and you eat it, make it a meditation. Or you there's a in Plum Village, which is the tradition of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. They have this thing called tea ceremony, where all the monks and nuns, they come and together and they sit and have tea mindfully, right? So that also you can do. Then specific object, like you can use like death. You can meditate on death. You can meditate on unpractice of body, and there are a lot of things. Generally, what happens? These meditations, a teacher who knows about your qualities, negative, positive qualities, and who knows, what is suited for you, then that particular teacher can suggest to you to do, to meditate on that specific object, right? Otherwise, if you don't have a teacher, then the Anapanasati you can start with, and later on you can move to other things. But Anapanasati is the best starting point for any beginner. Then Zazen. Zazen is basically practiced in the Zen traditions. So even in Zen tradition, there are various schools. Like I practice in the Plum Village tradition. Then there is the Soto Zen school. Many Zen schools are there which have their own way of practicing Zen. So ideally, when you practice, you try to take the instructions from a particular teacher or get associated with a particular school of thought, school of Buddhism. Like I practice in Plum Village tradition, and so it's not necessarily that you have to do everything what they say, but they will give you a general direction on how to move, right? So Zazen also, there are various ways, like only like some practice Anapanasati, some practice just sitting meditation, where they just sit on the awareness that they are sitting. Then some practice the counting the breath. So there are many ways to do just sitting, and many more ways are there, right? But if you don't have a teacher, you're a starter, you're a beginner, start with Anapanasati, and then you can move. And even within the session, you can move to another forms of meditation if you resonate with them. So what you can do is, I'll just give you basic instructions. Set a timer of 10 minutes or more if it is okay with you. Start with 10 minutes. Sit comfortably in a quiet place, upright posture. Your spine should be erect. If the spine is not erect, then what will happen is you can become dull and go to sleep. So try to have the spine erect like a bow, right? Not very erect that it stretches and pains. No, but keep it reasonably stretched. Close your eyes, keep them half, or you can also keep them open, or you can keep them half closed, whichever you prefer. Keep the hands on your lap, palms facing up in a relaxed manner. Now bring your attention to the natural flow of the breath. Now, what you can do is that you can bring your attention to the abdomen or something, some like somewhere down below the abdomen, below the navel, right? Just comfortable place where you can sense the in and out movement of the belly. As you take the in breath, the belly goes out. As you take the out breath, the belly goes in. You can just fix attention there, or you can fix attention to the point below the nose and between the nose and the upper lip. This point you can just sense the in and out breathing. For me, what works is the abdomen, right? Now, in the Indian tradition of Vipassana, they make you focus on the hair, but in the certain other traditions of Vipassana, like the Thai traditions, they make you practice on the abdomen. So whatever feels comfortable with you, main thing is to be aware of the breathing. If you have an anchor, then it helps a particular place of the body, but that is not a must. Main thing is become aware of the in and out breathing, right? So what you do is that you attend to the natural flow of the breathing at the nostrils, or the natural rising and falling movement of the abdomen. Observe the breath without altering it. As the mind wanders, and which is the nature of the mind to wander, all these hindrances come up, worry, sexual desire, ill will, all these things come up. Then as soon as you become aware that your mind had got wandered, you come back to the breath. So we bring back. So as we bring ourselves back to our breath, the muscle of mindfulness in us strengthens. And so it's a practice which initially will take a bit of effort, but gradually, if you're diligent, it will uh, become easy and easy. So just be patient. And when you are ready to conclude, you can open your eyes. There is a guided meditation that I have made on this. You can check out the guided meditation also. It's there on my channel. Right. So this is the end. We come to the end of session 5. So what we have discussed in this session is right mindfulness and right concentration. In the next session, so we have already discussed ethical conduct category. We have this element ethical conduct. We have discussed mental development. Now the remaining is uh, right view and right intention, right? Which is the wisdom aspect. So there are two noble eightfold paths which are remaining, which we'll cover in the next session. So this is the end of session 5. If this is the first session that you've seen, please be aware that all the earlier sessions are available on my channel. So you can go back to the earlier sessions. If you're a beginner to Buddha teachings, then I have made a detailed video on that. If you're a beginner, how to start study of Buddha's teachings, you can check that. So please spend some time to reflect on these learnings, start practicing, bring more mindfulness in your life. And next Thursday, 7 p.m. IST, will meet. This will be available here on YouTube, as well as it will be available. If you want to join through Zoom, you can join through Zoom. If you have any questions, you can ask. Now, for any updates on my sessions or any work that I do on Buddha teachings, you can join the Telegram channel Buddha Teachings 2. And there's also a discussion group where if you have any queries, you can also ask on the discussion group. So you can join that. And do please support this work to help spread the teachings of Buddha to as many people as possible. The links are there in the description. So this is it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being part and helping me share my little learnings on this topic. We meet next Thursday, 7 p.m. IST. Thank you so much. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya.